We're nearing the end of my week-long journey to discuss every Artificer subclass, and today we're doing the big one, the Battlesmith. This has long been considered to be the quote-unquote best or most powerful subclass, even in the 2014 era, and many are still saying that it's the best one today. So with that, let's take a look and see just what the Battlesmith is offering here in Forge of the Artificer. As always, we'll begin with the description. Command a Construct Guardian. A Battlesmith is a combination of Protector and Medic, an expert at defending others and repairing both material and personnel. To aid their work, Battlesmiths are accompanied by a Steel Defender, a protective companion of their own creation. This to me conjures up the image of a constant and dominant force on a battlefield, but not necessarily in an imposing way like an armorer or an artillerist might be, but rather one that the party can just see and rely on. Someone that's there to both help them out when they need it, but also lay down the hurt when necessary. Alright, looking at our features starting off at level 3, as with every Artificer, we have Tools of the Trade. This time we get proficiency with Smith Tools, which is actually the same one that Armorers get. Again though, if we already have it, we can swap it out for another Artisan tool of our choice. And secondly, for our crafting portion, whenever we craft a non-magical or magic weapon, the amount of time required to craft it is halved. As I've done for each of these subclasses so far, I do want to take a minute to go over the crafting options, because I think this one might be a little bit better than some of the others. Before we do though, the quest to hit 25,000 subscribers before the end of the year is getting closer to becoming a reality, and I am so blown away by all of the support. It's truly crazy. So if you'd like to help support me on this quest, subscribing to the channel and clicking the like button while you're there helps way more than you might realize. Thank you. So if you've been following along all week, I apologize for the repetition, but it is going to be different, and if you're watching this like a year from now, you're welcome, I guess. As per the Dungeon Master's Guide, the time to craft a common magic item is 5 days and costs 50 gold. With our crafting proficiency, this cuts it down to 2.5 days, or possibly 2, depending on your DM whenever we craft a common magic weapon. On the face of it, that sounds great. So then the question becomes, what are the options for items that we can craft if we're looking at the items that are updated just for 2024? Well, there's not a lot. We've got the Moontouch Sword, Silvered Weapon, Sylvan Talon, and the Walloping Ammunition. In most of the other categories, the common options haven't been all that great, and I'm not going to say that any of these are like game-breaking, but there are at least some situationally relevant choices. The Moontouch Sword can help if someone's lacking dark vision, and the Silvered Weapon can be so cool if you know that you're playing in a campaign with shapeshifters and you're still at an early level. The Sylvan Talon providing a once per day cast of message isn't too bad either for a non-caster. All that to say that spending just 2 days of work on these is legitimately not entirely without merit. If we look at uncommon items, which is typically where the sweet spot kind of hits, again, there are some pretty good choices here, especially because we can craft these in just 5 days. Most of these though do boil down to +1 variants of weapons. But things like the Javelin of Lightning, Repeating Shot, or Returning Weapon are also pretty good. Now, as I have mentioned before, a lot of these are also on our level 2 Replicate Magic item table from our base Artificer class, so then again the question becomes, is that worth it? I think the answer is definitely maybe. Even at 5 days, it's still a reasonable time sink to commit to crafting these items, and whether or not you have that time is ultimately going to depend significantly on the type of campaign that you're playing and how much downtime is typically provided. If you're able to utilize an assistant and cut the time for an uncommon craft down to like 2 days, then this does kind of feel like a no-brainer, as 2 days is a pretty damn efficient time frame to start handing out +1 weapons to your party as early as level 3, and while not using any of your replicated item slots. So I think there's definitely a strong argument to be made here that this is probably among the better crafting options available, aside from maybe the Alchemist. As always though, the true question of how good this really is really going to depend on how much time you have available to yourself to craft during a campaign. Some campaigns take place over months or even years, in which case this is going to be great. Some campaigns are crammed into like a week, in which case you're not really going to have time to do anything. So what that ultimately boils down to is that the overall power of this feature is really dependent on just how much time you have available in your game versus how much of a reduction this is providing. Though obviously those two things do work hand in hand. Moving on, but also at level 3, we get our Battlesmith spells, which as always provides us with certain spells that we always have prepared whenever we reach certain levels. At level 3, we get Heroism and Shield. At level 5, we get Shining Smite and Warding Bond. At level 9, we get Aura of Vitality and Conjure Barrage. At level 13, we get Aura of Purity and Fire Shield. And at level 17, we get Banishing Smite and Mass Cure Wounds. Here's the thing about this spell list. As good as the Artillerist spell list was, this is even better. This list is just banger after banger. Heroism, Shield, both Smite spells, Aura Vitality, Conjure Barrage, it's just so good. Now, one point on the design here that I did want to bring up, and it is something that I have mentioned in the past, but it's certainly worth mentioning again in regard to this list. In the run-up to the release of the 2024 Player's Handbook, Jeremy Crawford and the other designers made a whole point about wanting to protect half-caster spell lists. This was, according to them, why a bard with magical secrets is unable to pick spells from the Paladin, Ranger, or Warlock's lists. They said that the spells on those lists were unique and were a big part of what helped the classes gain some additional identity and their own unique powers and flavors. And yet, here we go again, giving them away to another class. Now, this is not the first time that they've done this, but it just might be the most egregious. Conjure Barrage, as you are probably well aware, is absolutely disgusting on the spell storing item from the main Artificer class. This spell that was supposed to be a Ranger exclusive is accessible to the Battlesmith at the same time that a Ranger would get it, and just 2 levels later when they get their spell storing item at level 11, they can dump it in there and just have their homunculus or whatever pop off with 10 of these every single day. The big part of what makes Conjure Barrage so good isn't even just the enormous 60-foot cone, which is obviously great, but it's the fact that it hits a creature of our choice, meaning that it excludes allies, something that obviously wasn't even true for the Artillerist when they got Fireball in their list. So now, a spell that was supposed to be restricted to just one class is a huge part of the reason why another subclass gets an enormous boost. Now, this is still part of a larger discussion which I'll get to at the end of the video, but for now, I'm just going to end the Conjure Barrage talk here. Other than that though, Aura Vitality can also be a great choice for the spell storing item, but it's definitely way less proactive. Moving on, we're still at level 3 and we get Battle Ready. With this, we get 2 bonuses. First is Arcane Empowerment, which makes it so that when we make an attack with a magic weapon, we can use our Intelligence modifier for attack and damage rolls instead of Strength or Dexterity. This, again, is obviously very strong and reduces some of the multi-ability dependency that the class had, since they're now able to concentrate their efforts more singularly without worrying about impacting their ability to attack or to cast spells. And then we also get Weapon Knowledge, which provides us with proficiency with martial weapons, and we're also able to use a weapon that we have proficiency in as a spellcasting focus for our Artificer spells. Gaining access to additional weapon proficiencies is obviously just very good, and also being able to simultaneously use it as our spellcasting focus is great, freeing up some hands and mitigating some of the need to deal with the focus rules. And finally at level 3 we get what this subclass is all about, our Steel Defender. The Defender appears at level 3 and is friendly to us and our allies, and obeys our commands and lasts until we die. Additionally, if it dies, provided that it's been less than an hour since it happened, we can take the magic action to touch it and expend a spell slot. After 1 minute, it's revived with all of its hit points. Alternatively, if it's been longer than that, we need to wait until after we've completed a long rest and have smith tools in hand to create a new one, and we can only have 1 active. So, what does it do? In combat, it acts on our turn and can take its own reactions. We can issue a command using our bonus action, and if we don't issue any commands, it just takes the dodge action. As for its stats, its AC is 12 plus our Intelligence modifier, so it's probably around 15 when we get it and will max out at 17. Its hit points are 5 plus 5 times our Artificer level, so that means that at level 3 when we get it, it has 20 hit points. It's immune to poison damage as well as the Charmed, Exhausted, and Poison condition, and it gets to add our proficiency bonus to any ability check or saving throw that it makes. Offensively, its attack is called Force Empowered Rend, which allows it to make an attack roll that is equal to our spell attack modifier. It has a reach of 5 feet and deals 1d8 plus 2 plus our Intelligence modifier force damage on a hit. So it's not exactly hitting like a truck, but at least it does slightly scale with us as our Intelligence modifier increases. It can also take an action to repair itself, or an object or another construct that it can see within 5 feet, and restore a number of hit points equal to 2d8 plus our Intelligence modifier. As a side note, our Homunculus Servant, which we will almost certainly be having out as well, is a construct, so our Steel Defender can also heal that if necessary. And it could potentially also heal one of our Warforged allies as well, as they are also constructs. And finally, it has the Deflect Attack reaction. With it, when a creature within 5 feet of the defender makes an attack roll against a creature other than the defender, it can impose disadvantage on the attack. What's important to note here is that while the defender needs to be next to and see the attacker, it says nothing of the target on the receiving end of the attack, so it can still impose disadvantage on the attack even if the attacker is making a ranged attack and the defender cannot see the target. The Steel Defender is obviously a very strong and capable unit on its own. Between making attacks and providing some defensive bonuses, it is a great ally to have. Also, its speed is 40 feet, which is quite significant and can allow it to maneuver very well to potentially be able to utilize its deflect attack reaction more consistently. This is just an excellent feature. Moving on, at level 5 we get Extra Attack, which as usual allows us to make an extra attack when we take the attack action on our turn. But it also allows us to forego one of those attacks to instead command our Steel Defender to take its Force-empowered Rend option. This is interesting for a few reasons. On the face of it, it doesn't necessarily sound like it makes a ton of sense, since odds are our attacks are probably going to be better than that of our defender. But there may be some situations that it does make sense to do this. The first thing that jumps to mind is that if we had something else that we planned to do with our bonus action, but we still wanted our defender to get an attack in, this frees up our bonus action while still getting them to do something. This could be useful if our defender is just better positioned than us, or maybe we have disadvantage on an attack and our defender doesn't. There's really quite a few ways to make this worthwhile, even if they are all at least somewhat situational. I think the versatility that this affords us is quite powerful. At level 9, we get Arcane Jolt. This makes it so that when we hit a target with a magic weapon or our Steel Defender hits a target, we can choose from one of the following effects. Destructive Energy increases the damage by 2d6 force damage, or Restorative Energy allows us to choose one creature within 30 feet of the target that we hit, and we heal them for 2d6 hit points. This feature can be used a number of times equal to our intelligence modifier per long rest. This is a reasonable feature. 2d6 damage or 2d6 healing is admittedly not a whole lot, but it can be a nice bonus in the right moment. Emphasis on the right moment, as we do have quite a heavy restriction on the amount of times that we can use this ability, seeing as it's tied to our intelligence modifier. It's fine. Coming off of some of the last few features, it's hard to not feel a bit let down, but this is certainly more than good enough. And finally, at level 15, we get our capstone, Improved Defender. With this, both the damage and healing from our Arcane Jolt feature increases to 4d6. Note, not by 4d6, but to 4d6, so it's doubling. We still don't get an increase to the amount of times that we can use it, but at least now when we do, it is more potent, or at least staying consistent with our level increase. I still don't think this is anything to write home about though. And finally, it also gives us Improved Deflection, which makes it so that whenever our Steel Defender uses its Deflect attack reaction, the attacker takes damage equal to 1d4 plus our intelligence modifier. Now, there's not an unreasonable chance that this is going to be happening on most rounds, so it can add up, even if the damage itself, which is probably like 7 or 8, is not a whole lot. If we can trigger this every time or even just most times, it's certainly going to be doing enough over the course of a campaign. I don't think Improved Defender is an incredible capstone. It might actually be among the weaker ones that we've seen so far from the subclasses, but I still think it's pretty okay. It does its job and provides a non-trivial buff to features that we were already going to be using anyway, so in that sense, it's good. Overall, I think the Battlesmith is a very, very strong subclass, but I'm not going to bury the lead here. I think that on paper, it probably is the most powerful Artificer subclass as far as damage output or overall control goes, but I'm certainly far from the expert on that. Please don't just take my word for it. Though a huge part of that power is provided by the lunacy of Conjure Barrage being in the spell storing item, and that is a question that I've been asking myself all week, and was the basis for the title of this video. If the Battlesmith didn't have access to Conjure Barrage in its spell storing item, would it still be generally considered to be so strong? I even asked this question to all of you in a poll, and at the time of writing, with just 741 votes, which is very likely to change by the time that I edit this video, 58% said that factoring out Conjure Barrage, they don't believe that the Battlesmith would still be the strongest subclass for the Artificer. Now again, we're looking at a very small sample size, and yes, the question could have been worded better, but it's at least still a somewhat interesting result. I've bounced back and forth on this idea over the last few days as I've been writing this video, and to me, despite how much power is offered by Conjure Barrage, I still don't think that it's the base Artificer class that is just hard carrying the Battlesmith. I think between the rest of the spell list, even some of the crafting items that I've touched on, how versatile the Steel Defender is, the flexible extra attack, I think that there's just so much going for it that it's hard to not see just how good it is in a ton of different circumstances. Now, if I'm honest, it is also by far, and I'm talking like not even close here, it's my least favorite of the subclasses from a flavor and fantasy perspective. I have literally zero desire to play one, but that doesn't mean that I don't think it's still really good. The Alchemist and the Artillerist just generate so many more vibes per round for me that the Battlesmith barely registers. Anyway, with all that said, yes, the title here was total clickbait. Don't at me. I don't think that the Battlesmith is either overhyped or overpowered. I think it's sufficiently hyped given its relative power level. It's a great subclass that someone who does enjoy this flavor of fantasy is going to have a fantastic time playing. So that's all that I've got for the Battlesmith. Check back in tomorrow for a discussion of the only brand new subclass for the Artificer, the Cartographer. But otherwise, check out some of my other videos and take care.